Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast. It's a show filled with family history research strategies and techniques, news and entertainment, and inspiration. And I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 172. I am really excited about this episode because we're going to be launching something brand new. I hinted at it in the most recent Genealogy Gems newsletter, and this is going to be the big announcement. So you're just going to have to hang on tight. It's coming in just a few minutes here in the podcast, along with your DNA guide. Diane Southard is going to be here to tell us about what's going on in the world of DNA for our genealogy. And, of course, we're going to be hearing from you in the mailbox. But let's start off with a couple of newsy genealogy items here that's been going on lately. Did you know that Family Search has an interactive map to help you find English parish boundaries in 1851? If you're researching British ancestors, this is key information. We got to know where these boundaries were. And Daniel Poffenberg, who works over at the British desk at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, showed us this map. It's a real gem. He says the map has taken about 7 years to put together. You'll find it over at familysearch.org. And actually, it's maps.familysearch.org. And this is the England and Wales jurisdictions 1851 map. Our contributing editor here at Genealogy Gems, Sunny Morton, blogged about this recently and has some great information in her blog post about getting the most from the map, kind of what you need to know about it. She mentions that you use the main search interface to search for a specific location, and then click on layers to indicate whether you want the map to show you boundaries to parishes, counties, civil registration districts, dioceses, and more. And then you can just click and drag the map itself to explore it. Now, Wales is also included here, but the Welsh data doesn't appear to be entirely complete. You could try it anyway. It might have what you're looking for. And this map is kind of a work in progress, so it isn't permanently operational. It does go down occasionally, probably because they're working on it. It's suggested that if you want to print, you can just hit Control Print Screen and then paste it into Word or another program that accepts the images. Again, this is Family Search's interactive map. It's English parish boundaries of 1851, and we'll have a link to that for you in the show notes. And also recently, there was a pretty interesting article. This is from a website over in the UK, and they recently reported a story about an orphaned Heirloom World War I medal that's trying to make its way back home with help from a retired postal worker. Terry Lane is a member of a group that searches people's property for old artifacts. Of course, they get permission first. And he discovered the medal in a trash bin in the woods. Can you imagine? He cleaned it up enough to tell that it was a World War I British silver medal. And it has the inscription, PTE A.J. Stedman, ASC, and a notation that meant he was a supply specialist for Kitchener's New Army. So Lane contacted an expert researcher who has worked on Who Do You Think You Are for help, and they've determined that the man was likely Albert J. Stedman, who lived in that locale. Lane hopes to track down descendants so that he can return the medal back to the family. So you'll have to check this out. The pictures are fascinating. And if you by chance are from that area or have you heard of the Stedman family, maybe you'll be able to even pitch in and help them get this back. They're really putting the word out to try to find descendants of the family today. So I'll have a link to that in the show notes. And finally, recently in the Genealogy Gems newsletter, and I certainly hope that you're subscribing to that, it's absolutely free. You go to genealogygems.com and enter your email address. We'll get that out for you. It goes out every Thursday. And we have lots of great information in there for you to use. Recently, I was talking about What's replaced the random acts of genealogical kindness? This was a great website around for many years that was kind of facilitating people helping each other. And you could put in requests, and maybe somebody from that locale would be able to take on a small genealogy task for you and kind of help you out. Well, unfortunately, the website has closed, but I was talking about the fact that Facebook is really the replacement today for random acts of genealogical kindness. Now, while there are, I believe, 2 different random acts of genealogical kindness type groups on Facebook, the point of my article was really to say it can be even more specific than that, because there are Facebook groups for nearly every kind of possible interest you can imagine. So it doesn't hurt to do a search on random acts of genealogical kindness in Facebook, join the group, and put in a request that way. But I think you might even have more success sometimes going directly to a group that's specializing in the area that you're talking about. So if you are doing research in a particular county or state, you could put in that name of the locality along with the word history or genealogy, and you'll very likely find a group that's very active, and these are people concentrated in that area. Now, obviously, not all of them live in that area, but there is a concentrated interest, and certainly, I'm sure, many people who actually are from that area. So that's a way to just be a little more targeted in terms of getting involved with others who are researching what you're researching and hopefully able to help each other out. The other option I was talking about in that article was you could create your own Facebook group, and anybody can do this. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to the article that I wrote about this. It's called What Has Replaced Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness? And I've got some step-by-step for you on how to set up a Facebook group yourself. And it's really easy to do. You don't have to be, putting on Facebook what you had for lunch every day. You could strictly, if you wanted to, just join Facebook for genealogical purposes. Friend other genealogists, join their groups. You don't have to put any real personal information that you don't want to. And there's lots of privacy settings these days. So be sure and check those out if you do decide to join. But these groups are, like I say, a way to pull people from around the world who are interested in a particular topic. And there's lots of them for history and genealogy. And use both those keywords when you're searching, because many people are interested in the history of an area, and certainly family history is included in that, but they aren't necessarily genealogists. So you don't want to limit yourself too much when there might be somebody out there with some great information. I gave the example, and I think I've talked about it here on the podcast before, that I did a search on Margate, Kent, England, because I research my husband's family names. There's Munns, M-U-N-N-S, Bax, B-A-X, and Dixon. And when I did a search of Margate, Kent, England history, it brought up a fantastic group devoted to the history of Margate. I mean, this is what they're all about. They've amassed an unbelievable amount of shared information, photographs, postcards, and documents. And again, not everybody is a genealogist, but everybody in that group is interested in the history of Margate. And it's really the first place I would go to post a question or request help in getting information. And inevitably, someone is going to have the answer or be in a location where they can help me out. It's interesting when you think about, not every location or topic can have its own museum, but these are like virtual online archives. And it's all people like us who are pulling these gems out of our attics and our scrapbooks and our brains, sharing our memories and sharing them on a Facebook group. It's pretty fun. So head to the show notes for episode 172, and you'll get a link over to that article, which also has that step-by-step information on how you can create your own Facebook group. All right, well, coming up next, we're going to hear from you. And then, as I mentioned, I've got this big announcement coming up next.
Bring me a letter from from my old hometown. One with some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that she's longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
All right, here in the mailbox, I got an email from one of our longtime listeners and friends, Dot, who lives in Australia. And she's written into the show before. She says, I had to let you know how grateful I am to you and your podcasts. Thank you so much for helping our family put flesh on the bones of our ancestors. In episode 167 of Genealogy Gems, you mentioned that Paul Nada at Family Search let you know that the National Library of Australia had added an additional 35 historic newspapers to their online collection. And you'll find that at trove.nla.gov.au/newspaper. And yep, we'll have that for you in the show notes. Well, Dot says, in the last couple of weeks, we have found over 20 articles referring to our great-grandparents and family, Charles and Margaret McIntosh. Charles McIntosh came to Australia from Scotland in 1856, and he worked for the New South Wales Railways in various locations before settling in a gatehouse cottage in Moss Vale, as well as finding obituaries for family members, including our great-grandmother. We have found other interesting articles. And she says, I've included a few examples. Charles lost 2 sovereigns between the pub and the house, about $300. And that was according to one of the articles. And there was an unwelcome visitor to their house one time. It was a big black snake. Ew. And a cousin sent a description of the Golden Gate Bridge. Cool stuff. Dot has sent some images. I'm going to have those for you in the show notes. You got to check these out. Just how fun, these genealogy gems that she's finding in the newspapers. And she says, it's lovely to hear of the wedding of your youngest daughter, Hannah. Hope you are well. Well, thank you, Dot. We're doing great. Hannah and her new husband, Ryan, are doing wonderful. And I love seeing the gems that you're digging up. So we will have Dot's images in the show notes. And Kathy needs some help translating Swedish gems. She says, I just returned from an amazing trip to Sweden. Through the help of the local genealogical society, I was able to locate the descendants of an older sibling who did not immigrate to America. My newfound Swedish cousins were so delighted to meet my husband and myself. They knew they had American cousins, but had no idea where we lived. They had pictures and letters sent from California in the 1890s describing my great-grandparents' experience. My grandfather even wrote inquiring about a nice Swedish girl who might like to come to California. Priceless. He did find a nice Swedish girl, actually, in California. During this trip, I picked up brochures, books, etc., all in Swedish. I remember that you had a question from one of your listeners about how to translate a book in another language. And you talked about scanning the pages, and then what? I would appreciate any ideas, thoughts you might have on the subject. Be sure to remind your listeners about the local genealogical societies. Swedish genealogists spent 5 days with me looking for churches, graves, and farms. They were absolutely wonderful. I hope all's well with your daughter's wedding and that you are loving Texas. Yes, ma'am. Well, I think what you're referring to is in Genealogy Gems premium podcast episode. It was number 96. We covered all about translation tools. First, you would scan a page. So then you've got an image, right? You've got like a JPEG image. Then next you would have to convert that into typed text. And there are some tools that can do that through kind of an OCR, an optical character recognition type process. Finally, when you get your text, you could then drop that into Google Translate. It's a little bit of a multi-step process, but in many cases it is doable. And if you want even more about Google Translate, we have a whole chapter on that in my book, The Genealogist Google Toolbox. And we were just talking about Facebook groups, genealogy Facebook groups. This would be a place you could go, either to Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness or specifically to Swedish genealogy. Use those keywords in Facebook. And you may very well be able to post your request, and you'll probably find somebody who does read and write Swedish. I know we have some Swedish listeners here on the podcast, and then you could upload your scanned copies, and perhaps they could do a little bit of translation for you. We're all in this together, so thank you so much, Kathy, for writing, and good luck with that. All right. Well, now I love when you guys write in. It's awesome. I love sharing your emails here on the show, but I even love more getting your voicemails. And a couple of you have called in recently and left voicemails on the voicemail line.
Hi, Lisa. My name is Amy Kelson. I just wanted to call and thank you for your episode talking about that the World War II newsreels had been cataloged by Ancestry.com. I'm fairly new to genealogy. And I remember as a young girl, my grandmother telling me that while my grandfather was deployed in World War II, she went to a movie and sat down to watch the movie, and the newsreel began, and she saw her husband in one of these newsreels in the mission that he was conducting in Burma in World War II. And I had always wanted to find that and didn't know how to do that. And I was so excited after hearing your podcast. I went looking on Ancestry.com, and it only took me about 2 hours to find the newsreel that I was looking for. And it is such a treasure. My family has thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for sharing that information.
Hi, Lisa. This is Jillian Boucher, and I am in Wabaseka, Arkansas. And I just wanted to take a minute to tell you how much I truly do love your podcast. And I find it very informative, and it allows me to kind of step outside the box a little bit and consider some alternative sources that I may not usually think of when I first initially think of genealogy, like YouTube for genealogy, which blows my mind. I continue to look forward to your podcast and love the blog, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and your tricks of the trade with us. And we really do love you here in Arkansas, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amy and Jillian, for calling in. You can just hear the love of family history in their voices, and that's why I love getting your calls and sharing them here on the show. And I want to be sure to let you know that Amy told me that she has a genealogy blog. It's called Burgess Genealogy, and you'll find it at burgessgenealogy.wordpress.com. So you can check that out. And I enjoyed these voicemails so much that Amy and Jillian are going to receive a thank you gift. It's a PDF of my article that I wrote for Family Tree magazine. It's called Technology RX, and it includes 10 of my top favorite tools for managing technology in your life. So, Amy, please send me your email address. I don't have that yet. Send it to genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get that out to you. I've got Jillian's address, so that is in the email. And if you would like your chance to receive a copy of this 5-page PDF article, all you need to do is call and leave a voicemail, comment, or question, like they did, at 925-272-4021. Be sure to clearly leave your email address as well at the end of your comment. We won't put that on the show, but I'll need that, because if we do use your comment or question on the show, you will receive the Technology RX PDF by email. Just a little incentive to get you involved here on the Genealogy Gems podcast.
Bring me a from my hometown.
Our sponsor for this episode is MyHeritage. Now, I know that you tune in to the Genealogy Gems podcast because you know that I'm going to carefully vet the products that come across my desk. And I'm only going to bring to this show the ones that I really think are the real gems. Well, MyHeritage.com is in that category, and I couldn't be happier that they've signed on to support and sponsor this free podcast. I've spent the last several months really digging into MyHeritage, and I found some powerful tools that I think you really need in your genealogy tool belt. First of all, they have over 70 million members worldwide. If you're serious about making connections in the country where your ancestors once lived, hands down, MyHeritage is the place that you want to be. Get your tree posted on their website and start to see the magic as they automatically match it up with other trees. Not just with genealogists in the country where you live, but genealogists around the world. Then there's MyHeritage's unique and powerful search system. It's called Record Matches. It constantly calls 5 billion historical records for your family. It's the only family history interface out there using semantic analysis to search newspaper articles, books, and other free text documents. It's also the first to translate names between languages. And I personally like that the matches from the historical newspaper collection at MyHeritage, they show up towards the top of the results list. So visit myheritage.com. It's free to get started, so there's really no reason to wait, and there are billions of reasons to try it out. Visit myheritage.com. Do you love to read? Then you're going to be really happy to hear that we are finally launching the new Genealogy Gems Book Club. This is an idea that's been percolating for quite some time, and I know that many of you have sent in your recommendations for riveting books for us to dig into. And I can't think of anybody who reads more voraciously than our own contributing editor, Sunny Morton. So I've asked Sunny to be our own Genealogy Gems Book Club guru. So this is how it's going to work. The first month of each quarter, Sunny's going to introduce us to our featured book. Now, you know, in the past, we've had Steve Luxenberg here on the show. He wrote Annie's Ghosts, and that was such a huge hit that I'm really excited about Sunny digging up some new incredible books just like that to feature. The next month, we will talk about the book, as well as have Sunny introduce you to a few more book gems in case you need a few other good reads to hold you over until our final month of the quarter. And that's where we're going to give you a sneak peek at our interview with the author to get their insight on their book. And as always, Genealogy Gems Premium members get to take this feature to the next level, because in that last month on the Premium podcast, Sunny will join us for an extended chat with the author about the family history aspects of their book. And speaking of contributing editor and book club guru, Sunny Morton, she's here right now to talk about it and help us get started. Hi, Sunny.
Hi, Lisa. I am super excited about this. And you're right. I can't put a book down wherever I am.
I don't think I've ever mentioned a book where you didn't say, oh, yeah, read that.
You know, I have to, if I look over at my bedside table or next to my desk or the 2 different bookshelves in my bedroom, my shelves are just packed with books, and many of them are history and genealogy books. I really do love to read, and I am super excited to do this.
Yeah, and I've seen your iPad too. So, I mean, it doesn't even matter if it's paper or if it's electronic, although I know you love turning those pages. You know, this is going to be really neat because so many people have responded to the author interviews that we've had here on the show and sent in some fabulous topics and titles. You know, it's funny. At first I was thinking, oh, where do we start? What, you know, we're going to have enough to talk about. And oh my gosh, it's been whittling it down. That's been so difficult, right?
That will be the challenge in the coming months. Yeah, it really will.
Well, tell us about our first book gem. Let's launch it right now.
Okay. I feel like we need a drum roll.
I know. Okay. Here it comes.
Okay.
All right. There you go.
Our first Genealogy Gems book for this quarter is She Left Me the Gun, My Mother's Life Before Me by Emma Brox. So Emma is an award-winning journalist. She's from the UK, and this is the book. After her mother died, she began investigating hints of her mom's difficult childhood in South Africa. So here's a little teaser from the back of the book jacket. Brox begins a dangerous journey into the land and the life her mother fled from years before. A chilling work of psychological suspense and forensic memoir, She Left Me the Gun chronicles Brock's efforts to walk the knife edge between understanding her mother's unspeakable traumas and embracing the happiness she chose for her daughter. Now, that sounds a little heavy, and I admit, almost a little daunting, but this is an amazing page-turning read. One reviewer describes it as a memoir that's also part family history, part investigative reporting, part travel narrative. It's beautifully written. It's funny. It's very self-aware. Emma is working her way around a very sensitive topic with relatives she's never even met. She says the things we all think as we're reading, but we may not even realize yet that we're thinking them. And it's just amazing to read this.
Yeah, and my daughter, Vienna, when I mentioned the book to her, she just perked right up. Oh, yeah, read that. And, she's not necessarily an avid genealogist. She kind of leaves that to me. But she does do producing here for us here on the Genealogy Gems podcast. So when she heard the book, she said, oh no, your folks are going to love this. Cause you're right. I mean, it's got the whole investigative thing, the finding relatives, both passed away and living and just, she said it was just an absolutely riveting read. So what do you think that Genealogy Gems listeners will especially appreciate about this book?
Oh my goodness, I have a list. Okay. I think they're going to love the way the author describes her research and discovery process. She does online research. She works in the South African archives. She discovers this way her grandfather's conviction of a serious crime that her own mom's family didn't even know about, on top of the crimes that they did know about. And then I think they'll also love the historical context. Her mother's life straddles the apartheid era South Africa and the UK. So it's a first-generation immigrant's tale, as well as a larger story of her life. I think that they'll appreciate the difficulties that Emma has in intruding into people's lives to ask very personal questions about the family past. I think they'll appreciate her descriptions of the relationships between her aunts and her uncles and the way she describes each of them. I think a marvelous take-home for family historians is Emma's ability to absorb the tragedies of the past without being sunk by them. And
wow.
And absolutely, anyone who has ever written their own family history will be absolutely inspired by the way she writes. She's so compelling. She writes with such compassion, but she's not overly sentimental. Really, this is a great model for family history writers to learn how to write compellingly and honestly about their own family stories.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, as we're going through looking at these books, that we really look for that criteria of it reaching us and enriching us on so many different levels. That's, to me, what makes the books that we're selecting genealogy gems. And it makes it, I think, that makes them really universal. So depending on wherever you are in your research journey, they're going to be able to speak to you and you're going to be able to pull some real treasures out of them. Now, in a couple of months, we're going to have an interview on the show with the author, Emma Brox. And the interview is fascinating, whether or not you've read the book. So don't worry if you aren't a huge book reader, you're busy doing other things. That's okay. You're going to love the interview. But the reason that we're telling you ahead of time is that you're going to love it even more if you read the book. If you've been looking to pick up just the perfect read for you and be able to join us in a community setting and then hear from the author themselves, this is your opportunity. Can you give us a hint about it, Sunny, about this terrific interview I know you've already recorded with Emma?
I did already do the interview, and it was so much fun. I will give you a little teaser. So my favorite part of the interview is something that she really only touches on briefly in the book itself. how to tell the stories of living relatives in print without hurting their feelings or without damaging your relationship with them. I think that's a tricky road to walk, and she talks about it with a lot of candor and some great advice. So that was one of my favorite parts of our conversation, because I can tell that she cares about her family a lot. She's not exploiting them in writing about them. Mm-hmm. She's not being insensitive. She's incredibly sensitive. So I'm really excited to share this book with Genealogy Gems audiences, and in a couple months, the interview as well. Again, the book is She Left Me the Gun, My Mother's Life Before Me by Emma Brox.
And don't worry, if you're like Sunny and you devour these books so quickly, Sunny will be joining us each month here on the podcast and giving us additional books for you to take up if you've already finished this one, but you can still then join us in the conversation. And we'll be doing that in a couple of different ways. So let's get you started. Head to genealogy-gems.com/genealogy-book-club. That's going to be our meeting place, our homepage for the Genealogy Gems Book Club. And you'll find a link to our featured book that Sunny has just told us about. And of course, the link will take you over to Amazon, which is typically the best price going. And the beauty of that is that when you do purchase the book, whether it's the ebook or it's for Kindle, it's the paperback, doesn't matter. Any purchase that you make actually does support the free podcast. So we always appreciate you using our links on the website to do that. And of course, all the updates of other books that Sunny is talking about and mentioning. Now, she's going to be doing some regular blog posts as well. So here's how we get to those. If you head to genealogygems.com, you can go to the book club page at /genealogy-book-club, or scroll down on the home page to where it says select content by topic. And when you go to the drop-down menu, you'll see the book club there. Just click on that, and every blog post that Sunny has posted will show up in one complete list for you so that you can always find us. And she will be very active over at the Genealogy Gems podcast page in Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, this is going to be a great place for us to have discussions about the book as well. And this will be evolving. So keep an eye on the Genealogy Gems blog and our book club page, because we'll be doing lots of updates and looking to you for ideas, how you want to interact, what you would like to see. And we'll be building that into this as we go along. It's a team effort and a wonderful way to have community together about something that we all love, which are terrific books. Okay, we're excited. We're going to start off with She Left Me the Gun, My Mother's Life Before Me by Emma Brox. Sunny, our book club guru, thank you so much. We're going to look forward to talking to you next month.
I'll talk to you next month.
I've got some great news for all you genealogists out there. Roots Magic 6 is now available, and it offers some of the most customer-requested features, like online publishing, the ability to search every record, not just people, an editable timeline view, which is really incredible, and new web tags, which lets you link people, sources, places, and research log items to web pages, plus dozens of other great enhancements, and of course, all the built-in features that you've come to enjoy. There is a little something here for everyone. Now, if you're already a devoted Roots Magic user like I am, or if you're looking to take the next step in your family history research and finally start recording your family tree in your own genealogy database, or if you've just been wanting to make a switch to a much more user-friendly program, there's no better time to get your copy of Roots Magic 6. Do it now. Go to rootsmagic.com and download your risk-free trial of Roots Magic 6. You'll see why professionals and beginners alike choose Roots Magic at rootsmagic.com.
recently, a group of 100 residents from a very cosmopolitan city assembled together to determine what exactly it was they had in common. What they learned about themselves that evening has a direct impact on you, a genealogist interested in identifying your ancestors. Hello, I'm Diane Southard, your DNA guide. Those 100 residents were from Wellington, New Zealand. Their host, Dr. Spencer Wells, director of the National Genealogy Project. Their admittance fee to this party? A cheek swab. You see, 800 years ago, the first inhabitants of New Zealand were just beginning to explore their new territory. They had arrived from the eastern islands of Polynesia and lived in a relative isolation for over 500 years. While first discovered by the Dutch in 1642, New Zealand wasn't regularly visited by Europeans until the late 18th century. Therefore, the study of New Zealand's populations can give us a relatively recent look at what has been going on all over the world for thousands of years. Indigenous populations being mixed with outside population groups. For Spencer Wells and the National Genealogy Project, sampling people of New Zealand would provide a rare opportunity to study the genetic effect of a recent collision of populations. We can think of mixing populations like adding a tablespoon of salt to a glass of water. At first, it's easy to see the two different substances coexisting in the same location. But soon, the salt becomes part of the water, creating a new substance, with only a small portion of the original substances remaining. This is what happened throughout history as outside groups arrived and intermarried with indigenous populations. The goal of population genetics as a field of study, and specifically of the National Genealogy Project, is to look at the modern-day population, in our example, the saltwater, and be able to identify which ancestral populations are present. In our example, determine which parts are salt and which parts are water. This, of course, without knowing beforehand that you're dealing with salt water. The National Genealogy Project has identified 9 ancestral regions from which they believe all modern populations descend. These 9 would be like our salt in our water. They have then described how 43 reference population groups, our saltwater, are comprised of their own unique mix of these 9 groups. They can also describe the origins of your direct maternal line, and if you're male, your direct paternal line. This information was gathered for the Wellington residents, and it was determined that the original Polynesian population and a small East Asian population are certainly the minority among a predominantly Western European population group. This information will help groups like the National Genealogy Project to determine the possible migration patterns of other people and cultures. What does this mean for genealogy? This is the kind of research that helps fuel the admixture results, the pie charts and percentages, reported to you by a genetic genealogy testing company when you take an autosomal DNA test. It is this research that helps genetic genealogists look at your DNA and pick out the essential ancestral elements, your salt and your water, and determine how your unique mix, your salt water, reveals information about the origins and migration patterns of your ancestors. If you have tried to use DNA to discover how salty your water is and are a little bit confused by the results, I can help. To get started making your DNA results work for you, check out my quick guides in the Genealogy Gems store. Additionally, if you want a personal guided tour through your DNA test results in a personal consultation setting, I can teach you how to look for clues in your DNA to help you understand more about your family history and about your heritage. Email me. I want to hear about your DNA testing experience, and I want to help you make sense of it. My email address is guide, Guide, at yourdnaguide.com.
You know, throughout history, October has turned out to be quite a month for technological innovations. particularly those that affect our everyday lives through modern conveniences. Well, in this very special Profile America segment, come with me as we boldly go where no man has gone before.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Profile America, Tuesday, October 21st. An invention was demonstrated on this date in 1879 that lit the way for a dramatic change in the rhythm of Americans' daily lives. At his Menlo Park, New Jersey laboratory, Thomas Edison set up the first incandescent light bulb, which burned for almost 14 hours. Within a few years, some cities had installed electric streetlights. The number of homes across the U.S. with electricity grew steadily, but even in 1940, more than 1 in 5 houses was without power. Today, there are over 10,000 electric power-generating establishments. American homes, on average, use nearly 11,000 kilowatt-hours of electricity each year. The national average bill for this power is just over $107 per month, but over $203 in Hawaii.
But it's a mystery, and I don't like mysteries. Give me a bellyache, and I got a beauty right now.
Wednesday, October 22nd, 10/22/38 Astoria. That cryptic sequence indicating the date and place was the very first photocopied image, created on this date in 1938 in Astoria, New York. A man named Chester Carlson developed a method of making dry copies of documents on plain paper, known as xerography, which we take for granted in using photocopiers today. Before his invention, copies were made by either using carbon paper when typing or by a mimeograph machine for large numbers of copies. Both were messy and cumbersome. The first commercial photocopiers became available in 1959. Now, 76 years to the day after the first photocopy, making copiers is a $2.2 billion a year business in the U.S.
Live long and prosper.
Saturday, October 25th. A melted candy bar led to the invention of one of today's most used kitchen appliances. Percy Spencer of the Raytheon Company was working on a military radar device in the mid-1940s when he noticed that his snack had gotten soft. Intrigued, he experimented with irradiating some kernels of popcorn, which promptly burst. Further work led to the first microwave ovens, which cost only a little less than a new car. On this date in 1955, the first consumer models were introduced, but they required installation and cost $1,200. Countertop models came along in 1967. Now, more than 9 out of 10 homes across the country have microwave ovens. Manufacturing microwave ovens and other electric cooking ranges is a nearly $2.5 billion a year business.
Illogical.
Sunday, October 26th. Doing laundry was a wearying, time-consuming chore for many centuries. The Industrial Revolution and American inventiveness attacked the ancient chore on this date in 1858 when Hamilton Smith patented a rotary washing machine. But it was hand-driven and proved to be hard on both the operator and clothes. People continued to use the tub and washboard even after the first electric washer came along in 1908. A few years later, the agitator-type machine appeared and gained immediate popularity. Finally, in the late 1930s, the fully automatic washer with a spin cycle went on sale. Today, over 85% of the nation's nearly 119 million households have a washing machine. Wednesday, October 29th. The scene on this date in 1945 at Gimbel's department store in New York City was shopping chaos. Big ads the day before had trumpeted the first sale in the U.S. of a new writing instrument that guaranteed it would write for 2 years without refilling. the ballpoint pen. By the end of the day, the store had sold its entire stock of 10,000 at $12.50 each. The idea of the ballpoint pen was first patented in 1888 by John Loud of Massachusetts, who never made any pens. Now, ballpoints are the standard. Vast selections are offered by the nation's 7,400 office supply stores, which employ some 94,000 workers.
Fascinating.
Thanks for joining me for this Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 172. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of cool things going on. Again, if you want to leave a voicemail on our voicemail line and perhaps be included here on the show and get a copy of that 5-page PDF article, leave your voicemail at 925-272-4021. And of course, the book club. You can check it out now at genealogygems.com/genealogy-book-club. It's going to be a ton of fun, and we've got some great books and author interviews for you coming up. And one last thing, as we're heading into the holiday season, I know a lot of you, like me, are going to be doing a lot of your shopping online. And we so appreciate it. If you're going to be going to Amazon this holiday season to do your shopping, if you wouldn't mind doing that through genealogygems.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll find the Amazon box there. Start your search there, and then anything that you purchase while you're at the website, we will receive credit for, and that goes to helping to financially support this free podcast. Doesn't cost you one single penny to do it, but Amazon will send us a small commission for sending you to their website, and all of that goes back into the production costs of this free Genealogy Gems podcast. So thank you so much. You guys have always been so wonderful about supporting this free podcast, and we love putting it out to you every month. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.